Hey guys, my name's Jose, and today we're going to take a look at a different type of episode. I'm going to take a look at Berkshire Hathaway's holdings. They just reported their 13F, which shows any changes they have made. I will also show some observations I've made while reviewing the information. Before we start, don't forget to hit that subscribe button to get info on new episodes and other videos. Also, don't forget to check out my website, josenajarro.com. All the information I post there is completely free. Finally, post on the comments whose holdings I should take a look at next. Maybe Ray Dalio's from Bridgewater? Let's begin. Alright guys, like I mentioned earlier, we're going to take a look at Berkshire Hathaway's holdings. They reported 13F on February 14th, 2019. So let's take a look. Alright, so we're going to take a look at the company sold. So these are the companies they sold. Apple, Wells Fargo, Southwest, ticker CHTR. I'm not sure which communication sector that is. American Airlines, and another stock, PSX. Apple, they sold about 1% of their total shares. So just because they changed 1% of their total shares, their percent of portfolio has changed. That's because this company is adding more companies. It's adding other holdings. It's removing other holdings. So even though the percent change is 1% of ownership, the overall percent of portfolio can be different from that percentage. So previous percentage of the portfolio was 25.79%. Now it's 21.5%. So the portfolio change was about 4%, but the actual change in shares were only 1%. So this percent right here is the actual numbers of shares changed. So it did sell Apple, but it only sold 1% of its original holdings. So that's not bad. I see news out there that's making it seem like it was some crazy number, but it was only 1% of total ownership. Wells Fargo, it sold 3% of it. Right now, Wells Fargo is about 10.7% of its portfolio. Next, we have Southwest Airlines. It sold about 2% of its ownership, and now it's 1.39% of portfolio. The biggest change has to be from company PSX, which is an energy sector company. It sold about 22% of its ownership, of its shares, and American United Airlines, it sold about 15% of its shares. Next, we'll take a look at the companies bought. We can see here, this company has bought a lot of finance. They bought a lot of finance this quarter. They bought Bank of America, USB, JPM, BK, PNC, TRV. All these are banking finance companies that have been purchased, and we can see in the percent change that a huge amount of percentage has been increased. The only company that was not financed that they bought was GM, General Motors, which is a consumer company, and they increased their portfolio by their shares by 37%. So this company, Berkshire, is buying a lot of banks right now, and that's where we see all the companies. Six of the 7 companies bought this quarter were financed. All right, so there were a few companies that were newly added to the holdings: RHT, Red Hat, SU Energy, and STNE. The amount of percent of portfolio though is not a huge portion. Red Hat is 0.4, SU is 0.6, and STNE is 0.14% of portfolio. So we can see by the rankings are pretty low based on the portfolio, so it's not something I'm really keeping an eye out for. Next, we have companies completely sold. So they sold completely all their shares of Oracle, ORCL, information technology sector. Back then, it was about 1% of their portfolio. Now it's 0. They completely sold out of this company. Next, we'll take a look at their top holdings. So here we can see their top holdings. I have them listed in the percentage of portfolio. Apple is about 21% of the portfolio, and it ranks as number 1. Estimated average paid, this information was collected from wellwisdom.com, so you guys should definitely check them out. But they say the average price paid is about $149.26. let's go back. Then the next two is Bank of America, Wells Fargo with 12%, 10.74%. Then we have Coca-Cola at 10.35%, AXP, another finance at 7.89%, Kraft Heinz, consumer stable at 7.66%, USB, JPM, more finance, and these are the top 15 holdings of Berkshire at the moment. Next, we'll take a look, a quick overview. This is just something I found while looking at this information. This company has about over 40, I think it's 49 companies in their holdings, but the top 15 holdings make up 87% of the portfolio. That's dramatic compared. So the other 30 companies make 13% of the portfolio. So I'm really only looking at these top 15 holdings just because they make such a huge portion of the portfolio. Then even closer, if we look at the top 5 holdings, make up 62% of the portfolio. So if we want to go back, the top 5 are Apple, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Coca-Cola, and AXP. 3 out of those 5 are finance. What else did we find out? 7 of the top 10 holdings are finance sector and are about 38% of the portfolio. So like I mentioned before, right, this company seems to be buying a lot of banks, a lot of finance sectors company, and we can see 7 of the top 10 holdings are finance sector, and they're about 38% of the portfolio. 2 out of the top 10 are consumer staples, so Coca-Cola, like I mentioned, and Kraft, and they make up 18% of the portfolio. And 1 out of the top 10 is Apple, which is the number 1, and it holds 21% of the portfolio. And like we mentioned, it did sell Apple this past quarter, but they only sold 1% of their total ownership, which is not it's not as bad as the news are making it seem. Then another interesting thing, I saw that Berkshire has a lot of transport sectors companies. They own, and I was looking at the amount of percentage they own of the actual company. So in the percent of the portfolio, they might own less just because the companies are smaller compared to other companies, but they own close to 10% of United, 10% of Delta, 10% of Southwest, and 10% of American Airlines. Some of them are between 7 to 10%, but on rough, they own about 10% of each of the company. So they are 10% owners of these airlines, of each of these airlines, which is pretty impressive. So we can see, right, if you definitely want to trade like them or have companies like them, it seems they have huge ownership in airlines. They're definitely pretty bullish on the finance sector. As we can see, 38% of their portfolio is on finance sector. They do have a nice amount of consumer staples where we have Coca-Cola, KHC, and like we saw before, they also have General Motors that they just bought, which was another consumer, not a consumer staple, but it's definitely a consumer product, cars. And they do have one of the top technology, and it's currently Apple, which is 21% of its portfolio. And I'm pretty sure I have the wrong ticker. It should be AAPL. Excuse me for that. Yeah, it should be AAPL. And this is just a graph I have that allows you guys to see everything. And here we can see how most of the companies make almost no percent of the portfolio. The big ones are Apple, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Coca-Cola, AXP, and Kraftman. These top 6 make a huge percent of this portfolio. I hope you guys enjoyed the episode taking a quick look at Berkshire Hathaway's holdings. If there's a company you would like me to do the same for, maybe we can do Ray Dalio next, please post it on the comments below. Also, don't forget to subscribe to get updates on new episodes and new videos. Thank you guys, have a good day, and see you next time.